to today's episode of the Oyster Stew Podcast. I'm Libby Hall, Director of Communications for Oyster Consulting. In today's episode, Garrett and Jay Donlin share hard-earned lessons and expert guidance on how to make smarter technology decisions. From building a business-first strategy to avoiding common traps like chasing the shiny new tools on the market, they cover the full life cycle of a successful tech investment. Whether you're exploring AI or just looking to streamline your operations, this episode will help you stay focused on what really matters, delivering measurable results for your business. Let's dive in. Dan?
All right. Good morning. Thank you, Libby, for kicking us off here. I'm Dan Garrett. I'm here with Jay Donlin. I've been with Oyster for just over a year now. Very happy and excited to be here. We've been working with clients on technology strategy, whether that's data or system improvements, operational improvements, and so forth. I've had a great opportunity to go to many conferences over the last few months where there's just so much talk about AI and technology upgrades and so forth. So I'm sure we'll touch on some of those things. With that, Jay, if you want to start off with a quick introduction.
Yeah, Jay Donlin. I've been with Oyster for probably about over 6 years now, and been helping firms kind of navigate not only their platforms, whether it be clearing or custody, but also some of their technology stack and other strategic investments they need to make or process improvements. So, Dan, I think it's going to be a great time to talk.
So let's just talk about, at a high level, some of the topics that I think get missed when people are looking at technology, things that they should be thinking about, things that they should be reviewing, things that they may underestimate when they approach their technology strategy.
Yeah, Dan, there's a lot of shiny objects out there when it comes to technology, and a lot of people. There's a lot of good sales reps too at technology firms, and they'll tell you need something and sell you on it, and you may or may not need it, and it's something that you need to go through and decide: does it really provide value to your firm? Does it provide operational efficiencies or increase production for firms, reps or advisors? What will it really do to help your firm, your clients, and or your advisors? And it's something that we feel like a pretty good strategic review of your needs. Each firm's unique, so you want to make sure that you identify what actual needs you have versus all the chatter on the street regarding technology and all the like I said, all the chasing all the shiny objects.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're presenting it that way, because it's really about starting with what are the firm's goals. Forget about the technology, right? What's the strategy for the firm? Are we trying to grow? Are we trying to reduce cost? Are we trying to improve efficiencies? Are we trying to provide a better client experience? And having metrics around that too. What does that mean? What are the numbers behind that? And if we want to grow, at what rate do we want to grow? If we want to save money, how much money do we want to save? What are some of the benefits that the technology is going to provide to our financial advisors, to our clients? And having a metric around those things. So having a vision, a strategy for the business, metrics around that, and then you focus on the technology. I think so often the technology is there, and like you said, it's the shiny object, and it's like, oh, we should do this. And it's not about that. It's about starting with the business, starting with what the business needs are, and then going out and evaluating to see if there is technology that can help in these particular areas and are going to help move the needle on some of those metrics.
Yeah, Dan, that's exactly right. And even when you go to select a vendor, you have to make sure that if you need to integrate with whatever your providers are, whether it be a commission system or one of the custody or clearing providers, that they can actually do that. I've seen firms go out and invest a lot of money in a workflow solution, and they basically turn into a swivel chair. They can't get the information out of the system they invested in into their custody or clearing firm. And so now they've just created additional work versus leveraging what the clearing firm had in order to manage the business. Granted, they were trying to address gaps that the clearing firm had. So they had all the good intentions, but now they're in a situation where it's a swivel chair. They have to take the information out, turn around, put it into the clearing firm. So that's really not efficient. It has streamlined some of their work, but it's something that you need to be cognizant of when you're looking at firms, or looking at technology providers. The other thing is you kind of need to assess your field and your staff. I mean, are they going to adopt it? That's a big thing. A lot of people don't like change in general, and so if you're trying to force them to change, they have to see a benefit for that. And if it's just, oh, it's just more work or it's another project I've got to do, you might not get the adoption that you want for the product. And that's always, kind of like I've spent all this money on something and nobody's using it, and that's always a concern.
I see that a lot. I see folks kind of underestimating, the training and the adoption challenges. And part of that is bringing folks along on the journey of explaining that here's our mission, here's our strategy, here's what we're going to do, and here's technology that's going to help us do that. But be inclusive of people's ideas and thoughts, as you're going through the selection process and reviewing the opportunities and so forth, to kind of help get buy-in before you're actually there. It's that old adage of, who moved my cheese, right? And I think we see this over and over again at firms where they get in there, they think it's going to make a huge change, and they just underestimate the training, the adoption. And then, you could be spending a lot of money on something that just doesn't get utilized fully, or maybe you're using 10% of the capabilities of a system, but paying for 100% of it. You touched on something else I wanted to kind of dig into a little bit too, which was the integrations, not just with your other third-party vendors, but with data. And we're seeing this too a lot, that firms are really hindered by the fact that they don't have a data strategy. They haven't thought through. They've got data all over the place. It's not centralized. It's not normalized. And so without having that kind of bedrock or foundation to build on, any technology solution that you're bringing in, it can either, creates problems, but it can even make things even worse. And I've seen clients where, because they don't have a handle on the data that's going into these third-party vendors, which is supposed to make things more efficient, effective, is actually making things worse because the data isn't good data. It's not trusted data. So even though there may be an alert or something that the system's telling you need to do, you have to, like you said, swivel in a chair, go to another system, check to make sure that the data that's in that system is correct, by verifying it from the main system. And it just creates all of these inefficiencies, and it actually can make you go backwards in operational efficiencies if this isn't done properly and correctly. So as we said, it's the strategy and having the business strategy, and then having that foundation on your data, and having your data in a good shape and good place, and then being able to build on it from there.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Dan. We were working with a client not too long ago. They had gone and deployed a CRM system and imported data from various systems that they had, and they spent like a year. And it was something before we got engaged with them. They spent a year going through and cleaning it up, so it was this huge project for the staff within the organization and even some of the advisors, because the data was bad. And so when they imported it, mobile phone goes into home phone, and now they had to turn around and basically go through every record in the database and clean it up. It was a nightmare for them. They spent a tremendous amount of money on the system, acquiring it, and then it was a mess to clean up. So there was even more money to clean it up. So you definitely need to be careful with your data and make sure that you have good data going into anything.
Let's shift the conversation a little bit and talk about ROI and the return on the investment, because I think a lot of folks, what happens is a system gets brought in, you sign off on the budget and so forth, you implement it. There's a lot of troubles with all the things that we just discussed. And I think it's then kind of an embarrassment to go back and say, okay, what was the return on this investment? Did it do the things that we like to do, or that we were trying to accomplish? And I think a lot of firms don't have that strategy. They don't think about the metrics of what they're trying to improve. So even after they've implemented the technology, whether it was done great or it was a poor implementation, how do you calculate the ROI on it if you haven't really put together a thought around the metrics of what you're trying to improve, and looking at the numbers and the cost of the system and the cost of the operation? And there's also opportunity cost, because if you're not doing, you're doing this, you could have been doing something else. So let's talk about the math a little bit and some kind of best practices around what you should be doing before you acquire a system in the evaluation phase, and then really kind of post-mortem, looking at, was this a success? Did we meet our goals? Because I think a lot of times that last step gets skipped, and sometimes the first two steps get missed as well.
Yeah, I think you need to get pretty specific on metrics, right? I mean, you have to define what success means. So if it's okay, we want to increase production, by 10%, then how do you measure that? Do you measure it just as straight production? Do you measure it as something within that system that you purchased that you feel like you can tag to and say, okay, that's the number I need to monitor? Or if when I need to increase efficiency, are you looking for hours worked on the administrative support staff? Are you increasing business but you're not increasing hours worked, and things are still getting done and they're getting them timely, measuring time for processing things? You need to be thoughtful in figuring out the metrics that you want to look at or feel like you need to look at, because those are really the points that you're trying to address anyways. But you got to figure out how to measure it. And if you can't figure out how to measure it, you'll never figure out, did it really make a difference?
One thing I wanted to ask you, this is going to be a tough question, Jay, so I'm throwing you a hardball here, because I've struggled with this my entire career, and I would love to get your thoughts on it. And that is around, when do you call it off? When is a breaking point in an implementation where you just decide the best thing to do is to stop and quit and move on to something else? Like you've said, we've seen these case studies. CRM is a good example. We hear the stories all the time of somebody investing a lot of money into an application. They realize it's more difficult and going to be a lot more expensive than what was originally thought. They keep plugging more and more money into it, trying to solve the problem. Timelines get extended and extended and extended. When do you say, okay, this is not going to work. We're never going to get return on this investment. It's just something we need to stop and move on with.
I think it's a hard thing to tackle, right? I mean, because you're invested in the system. You've spent money on it. You spent all this time. People in your firm have spent time. They're invested in the implementation. But there is a point in time where you have to basically shake off the cobwebs and say, wait a minute, this is not going right. And I've seen firms spend tens of millions of dollars implementing a CRM, and they get 10% utilization. And it's at that point, it's like, okay, I'm solving 10%, but is that really enough? And how can I either adjust my processes to make it more palatable or increase adoption? Or do I need to cut bait because it's costing me all this money, and I'm not getting the return? Again, it goes back to the metrics. I mean, you have to define what you feel like measures your success. And it is a hard question when to cut bait. We've seen firms make decisions to go to other clearing firms or custody firms, transfer their book of business, and after 2 years, they're like, I can't do it anymore. I got to go back, and they end up going back to their firm. So, but these are huge decisions with huge investments that they've made, and it is hard. It's hard to make that decision, but sometimes it's the best thing to do for your firm.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Well, Jay, this has been great. I really appreciate the time and opportunity to kind of kick around some ideas with you around here. I think just to kind of summarize, the major points and make sure I've got it all here. We kind of talked about, first and foremost, focusing on the business strategy. What are you trying to accomplish from a business goal? Don't get distracted by the shiny, flashy new thing that's out there, which is AI right now, but there's some great opportunities there for sure. Focus on the business first and foremost. Come up with your metrics of what you're trying to do, your goals, so it's very clear what those metrics are. Then go find a partner and a solution that is going to help you tackle those issues and be able to accomplish some of those, accomplish the metrics that you put forward. And being aware that you do not want to underestimate the training and acceptance criteria, making sure that your staff is along for the journey and is accepting of the new systems and the new opportunities and the business goals, really. And then, thinking about and knowing when, it's time to make a change and to stop something that's just not working and to move on. So those are all great points. Did I get it all? Is there anything I'm missing there?
I think you got it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks all.
If you found today's discussion helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more episodes where we dive into industry strategies and best practices. For more information about our experts and our services, visit our website at oysterllc.com. Thanks for listening.